At a presentation at the Phoenix Club, the harness racing set were taken on a video tour of the region's best horses. But one of the pacers was a standout, Madawi Prince, a 6-year-old special.
I always say you only get one of them in a lifetime, and he's ours. I don't think we'll ever get another one, and we just make the most of it while he's there.
Madawi Prince is part owned by Tommy Ray and Keith McDeed. Keith is the trainer and driver. He accepted the trophy for the NBN Horse of the Year.
He's won 27 races all told now. He's made the final of an Inter Dominion. He's a rough chance of getting in a Miracle Mile this year.
Peter Wellington was named the Harness Racing Club's and the Caduceus Club's Driver of the Year. Trainer of the Year went to David Proctor and Tony Halpin.
The Eagles had the bye last weekend, giving them a chance to reflect on the season so far and their trip to the West, which didn't yield a point. They are currently languishing on the bottom of the table and face the Giants this weekend, who are in 6th place, having won 2 more matches than the Eagles this season. Manager Gomer Hodge is hoping for a change of fortune tonight on the Eagles' return to Marathon, the scene of their 3 victories this season. Meantime, in cricket, selectors have chosen a similar Newcastle team to play Illawarra tomorrow to the one that lost the one-day state final against Randwick at the SCG earlier this month. Lincoln Woods replaces Jamie Heath, who with Todd Campbell will play in the state under-19 trial in Sydney on Sunday. Spinner David Rickson has made himself available and may even play with his plaster cast after breaking his arm several weeks ago.
The Curry Residents Action Group was in celebration mode today, with Illumino pulling out of the town, saying government conditions are just too harsh. The company, which wanted to set up a plan to recycle a byproduct of aluminium or dross, will now try to move back to Rutherford at Maitland, a site it missed out on 5 months ago. In a press release, Garba Simonian from Illumino said the company would be pursuing the Maitland site through the Land and Environment Court. Mayor of Cessnock, Marie Callaghan, said the move means the loss of 600 jobs in a town where youth unemployment is up to 50%. It's been a bitter dispute with alleged death threats, physical violence and abuse.
It's been a very, very difficult time for sure. I think it's reinforced my intention not to stay on in local government. They're playing too dirty for me.
The debate now moves back to Maitland, with some councillors keeping an open mind about the Land and Environment Court challenge.
So long as they stick to the EPA, I didn't really have a problem with it.
But Maitland's Mayor, Councillor John Martin, said it was just speculation that wasn't even worth talking about. He said the dross plant was Cessnock Council's problem, not his. If history of the project is any gauge, it may just become the Maitland Mayor's problem. Peter Ryan, NBN News. You really can't miss them. This year's flowering jacarandas are something special. Experts are rating them as the brightest batch in living memory, and the reason, strangely enough, is the drought.
It's this kind of survival mechanism in that the trees are trying to put out a last burst of flowers so they'll have seed available just in case they don't survive through the dry time.
The town famous for its jacarandas, Grafton, has been a picture in recent weeks, tourists marvelling at one of our prettiest imports. The tree came in from South America more than 100 years ago.
They were introduced into Australia as an ornamental species. As you can see from the trees, they are a very soft textured trees and a very weeping habit. They do complement a lot of the architecture of what was built in Australia.
Jacarandas aren't the only trees thriving in the dry weather. Flame trees and bottle brushes are also doing well. But they don't quite have the impact of the jacaranda, dropping its mauve carpet, one of Mother Nature's joys. If the drought continues, we could have another month of the flowers. Peter Ryan, NBN News. The majestic biplane has been the centre of attention since flying out from England to Darwin, retracing the steps of the men who made the first flight in 1919, Ross and Keith Smith. But it was a younger batch of high flyers that were getting on board today for a living lesson in history.
Yeah, I've been in the back seat. It's been it's real loud back here. It's really windy, but it's good.
The plane was built and piloted by Peter McMillan and Lang Kilby. They took 41 days to make the trip, 13 days more than the originals. In recent weeks, however, they've been touring the country, giving flying fanatics a special treat. The Vimy is now on the market, valued at around $1.8 million. A special fundraising evening will be held at Luscantire tomorrow night. On sale, one of the flying suits of the pilots.
It's been 12 months since parking meters were removed, the trial aimed at making the city centre more user-friendly. The decision meant a considerable loss of revenue for council, which called on the Hunter Valley Research Foundation for a progress report. The study shows while more people are visiting the CBD, retail sales have not increased, but those findings are being challenged.
It was a very small survey. Initially 7 retailers were selected. The 7 were not able to provide the information required, and only 4 did provide that information.
Believing permanent removal of parking meters will help revitalisation, the City Centre Committee has backed calls for a 6-month extension of the trial, despite figures showing more than a third of commuters are abusing the system.
There's no doubt that there are employers and employees parking in areas which could be better used by customers of the retailers. But fundamentally, the employers and the employees have a right to park in the city because they have to attend their businesses. and it's the overall problem of parking that should be looked at, not the abuse.
The City Centre Committee is preparing for battle armed with its own ammunition. It's planning to reveal the opinions of up to 300 retailers at tomorrow night's briefing session. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
At 17, Stephen Bradford was the same size as his 12-year-old cousin, standing only 140 centimetres or 4 foot 7 inches tall.
Oh, minute. Yeah, I was the shortest when I left school.
When nature failed him, medical science offered the chance to be taller. Stephen was given a course of growth hormones derived from the pituitary glands of dead men. The pituitary gland, located in the brain, controls growth and fertility. So effective was the treatment, Stephen grew to 173 centimetres or 5 foot 8 inches.
Only from sort of talking to people, and you notice that you're starting to look down on them and you think, well, this is good. So, but really I never noticed a great deal. The clothes were 15 sizes too big, so I grew into them.
But 15 years later, Stephen was to receive disturbing news in an official letter sent to a previous address.
So I went round to have a look at a place that I used to live at, and there was a letter there for me. And it just basically said that you had this, stood the chance of having this disease, but it was nasty, but not to worry.
But worry he does. The growth hormone Stephen was given may cause him to develop Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a rare condition which attacks the central nervous system, causing muscle weakness, senility, and soon after, death. CJD, as it's known, has a symptomless incubation period of up to 30 years. There's no test for the disease and no cure.
It's a worry knowing there's a time bomb ticking and you don't know what to look for and what to expect and when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen.
Between 1967 and 1985, 2,062 Australians were given cadaver-derived pituitary hormones as treatment for infertility or growth problems. 4 women who were given infertility drugs have since died from CJD. Stephen is angry. He says he and others were used as a human experiment.
They were trying something that they figured they knew heaps about, but they were only guessing as they went, I think. So, therefore you are a guinea pig.
Stephen is critical of the way he was told.
It should have been a bit more personal, I think, but then again I think the whole scheme should have been a bit more personal.
Earlier this year, Professor Margaret Allars completed an inquiry into the use of human pituitary hormones in Australia.
The ethics committees, which existed from the late 70s and the early 80s, did not really play a decisive part in monitoring these various research projects which took place.
Federal Health Minister Carmen Lawrence recently announced a $10 million package, but compensation will have to be fought for in court. Stephen Bradford hopes this case will draw attention to the need for better government regulation of medical research and treatment. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Right in the restaurant belt and some 4...
For most of us, the dodgems mean pure and simple fun, but for one Newcastle company, it means big business. The company Nova has developed a bold new concept in dodgems, a system based on hydraulics, which means this can fold up into one big package.
Basically, this one will go up in 2 hours with 2 blokes. The old system takes normally 11 hours with 6 blokes.
So, over a 2-hour period, the transition takes place. Even the cars themselves are packed inside.
One Saturday morning around 6 o'clock, I just jumped out of bed and went straight to the drawing board and drew it all down, and next minute we cut out the cardboard cart, sized the scale down, and we had it.
From the initial idea to the finished product has taken 9 months of work. The company already has 3 on order and has had great interest from overseas. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's been a big year for Heidi Mather. She made the semi-finals of the Australian Under-17 Squash Championships and was runner-up in the Newcastle Junior Open. She's now ranked 6th best in her age group in Australia. Undoubtedly, these performances have impressed national selectors. Heidi has been invited to join the Brisbane-based Australian Institute of Sport Squash program next year.
It's a short-term goal. My long-term goal is to play on the international circuit and gradually be number 1 if I can.
Having been guided by Newcastle coach Wayne Stacey for the past 12 months, at the AIS, Heidi will be under the watchful eyes of former world champions Heather Mackay and Jeff Hunt.
She's got quite a lot of potential, and being developed by people like Jeff Hunt and Ken Hisco, that's, as you said, a very great advantage.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
According to New South Wales farmers, about 1,000 of the state's graziers have fed their cattle cotton trash. Apparently, not all of it contaminated.
Not all batches of trash contain this residue. The problem is we don't know which did and which didn't.
56% of the Namoy Valley's cotton crops have been sprayed with Helix, the pesticide blamed for sparking the contamination scare. It's been used on 29% of Gunnedah crops. At today's meeting, some farmers were angry about just why cotton sprayed with the chemical has been approved as a feed.
The cattle producers that got caught with Helix are completely innocent. Someone's guilty, and I don't know who, but I damn well like to find out.
A chemical company, government. I don't know who to blame.
For graziers like Brian McMullen, who has 120 beasts quarantined, the contamination scare means money.
It's costing approximately $3 a day per head. There's a lot of money involved, and to me, it's a big part of my income. It will be. If we can't get a satisfactory result in the next couple of weeks, I don't know what's going to happen.
And New South Wales farmers says nobody is sure how long farmers will have to wait for those cattle.
Because there hasn't been a lot of work done on the depletion rates in cattle, we're not sure, but 6 months has been put on for safety. It could be less than that. I guess there is a vague chance it could be more than that.
You only have to put yourself in the shoes of our emergency services to see how difficult it is to find numbers on houses. Every day they travel the suburbs, responding to frantic calls for assistance. But in growing numbers, they're being delayed.
At night time, it's especially hard to get a number, and if we're going there in a hurry, especially fire brigade and ambulance too, it becomes a problem finding the house.
It's a simple request and one which could save lives.
The cases we get called to are domestics and such, and fires for the fire brigade obviously. If we can see the number, it makes it also easier to get there.
Cessnock's Cinema 3 complex will officially open tomorrow night, but today we were given a sneak preview. While the movies were rolling inside, last-minute touches were being added to the foyer area and projection rooms. The complex, which includes a restaurant, coffee shop and games room, has taken just 12 weeks to complete since gaining council approval. And for long-time residents, it's a step back in time, with past theatres given a special billing. The facility in Charlton Street is the second major project by consortium Hunter Valley Cinemas, which also built the Maitland complex. Figures by the group showed that more than 10% of their customers were travelling from the coalfields. They're confident they're meeting a need in Cessnock.
We are positive this will now become the focal point of not only cinema, but dining, games room entertaining for the whole community and the surrounds.
Community leaders and police have long known there's very little for teenagers to do in the Cessnock area. It's one reason why they've campaigned hard for a cinema and entertainment complex.
But it took a youth forum in the town in April to finally get some action. There, the teenagers of Cessnock told in strong words how they had nothing to do and were turning to petty crime and hooliganism for entertainment. There's now a ripple of excitement in Cessnock, while the old Regent Theatre in Vincent Street stands as a monument to times past. This is the future, and it's being eagerly awaited.
It's great. Yeah, I love it. Can't wait till it opens.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The Newcastle branch of Diabetes Australia gave the hospital an information kit worth $2,000.
Well, basically, diabetes, there are only 3 rules when you have diabetes, and that's education, education and education. And that's what we're here to help people learn how to manage their diabetes themselves.
It had been at the top of the hospital's wish list, and the voluntary work of Diabetes Australia made it possible.
It's very complex. There are a lot of things to take in at once, especially when you're first diagnosed, and we find that we need a lot of different ways of doing it.
The package comprises 8 videos and information about how insulin is absorbed into the body.
As a first-timer in the gruelling 9-month, 50,000-kilometre round-the-world single-handed yacht race, Neubauer has already earned his stripes. After the dramatic rescue of another competitor whose yacht sank in the South Atlantic, Neubauer coaxed his own damaged yacht into Cape Town. Repairs have been completed to the keel, cracked when it struck a submerged refugee raft. The sailors, speaking via satellite in Cape Town today, are keen to get underway again, hoping to be in Sydney before Christmas.
I'm just looking forward to getting out there and having a go. It's up to the guy that wants to drive it the hardest.
Neubauer, sailing Newcastle, Australia, is in 4th place in his division and 11th overall in the 18-boat fleet, and is gunning for fellow Aussie David Adams, who leads Division 2. The fleet is setting out into heavy weather and will encounter Antarctic pack ice.
We've got a big low forming just below South Africa now, and we're expecting 50 knots on the first night, so that'll sort of sort us out a bit.
Neubauer is mindful of his hometown following.
It's not just my race. It's a lot more than just a yacht race. It's the whole community being involved, and it seems that they're all getting something out of it. And I think that for me that's a thrill, and I just have to say thank you.
The first of 2 sections for the Navy contract was slowly edged onto the barge at Kooragang. Engineers had timed the loading to the minute because it was critical that the rising tide coincided with the big push to position the 400-tonne section. Two massive trailers carried the section. Weight distribution was crucial, with the engineer stopping the trucks every few metres. Ballast on the barge was adjusted. The rising tide was measured to the millimetre. It was all over in 2 hours. The next section will be loaded tomorrow and the barge will be towed to Melbourne on Sunday. The sections of 2 of 6 major components to be pieced together to build a frigate warship. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Just a glassful was all the water the hospital management is willing to commit to the pool for now. So the facility, which cost the community $270,000, will remain idle for the time being.
Nobody else can fill pools. I don't see any reason why the health service should go about filling their pool either.
Fundraising for the pool began 9 years ago with local service clubs, other community organisations, schools and the general public soon picking up the project and running with it. A grant last May of $70,000 from the Department of Health allowed building plans to be prepared and tenders to be called. The pool will provide a facility for the treatment of the disabled, stroke victims, those with arthritic diseases and accident victims.
Heated pool will help also to promote relaxed muscles and relax the body so that the therapy can have its maximum effect.
However, there's still no word yet on when the valuable community resource will be filled with that vital ingredient, water. The service is aimed at helping owners of heritage-listed buildings gain advice about alterations, restoration and conservation work. It's part of an ongoing involvement by the council in managing the heritage of the city, begun in 1990 when it undertook a study of significant buildings. Back then, more than 230 private and public buildings were recorded in the areas of Taree, Wingham, Tanoni, Cundletown and Coopernook, as well as other rural areas.
We can appreciate how each area has developed and what items in that area contribute to a record of that development.
The Heritage Advisor program is free, being jointly funded by the Department of Planning and the Council for an initial 12-month period. And no question will be too small, from help with things like colour schemes to general information about the age, period and style of buildings from small houses right through to grand structures like post offices and railway stations. But the service is only available to owners of buildings which are already recognised as having heritage significance.
Like a lot of Newcastle teenagers, Gordana Kotevsky was with her friends last night at Charlestown Square Shopping Centre. She left at around 8:30 to walk a short distance to her aunt's place in Powell Street, but Gordana never arrived.
At this stage we are treating it as an abduction, yes.
Gordana's wallet and shopping bag were found near her aunt's house. The handle of the bag has been ripped. Police believe it was torn from her hands. Also supporting their abduction theory are reports of screaming in the street. Gordana's aunt Sonia also heard the yelling and men's voices.
Very loud female screams, and first of all it was really faint and then it just got loud, and I said to my husband, Gary, there's someone out there hurt or something, you know, go out and see. And as we were coming out, that's when the car drove off.
That car may hold the key to Gordana's disappearance. It possibly followed her as she walked home. To get to her auntie's place, Gordana had to cross busy Charlestown Road and then into Powell Street, which runs near the cinema complex. Police believe people must have seen her or the white Hilux. While students at Cardiff High School waited for news of their Year 11 companion, family gathered at the Powell Street house. Peggy Kortevsky says she usually picks her daughter up after shopping. She describes her as an angel.
Not even 5 minutes of walk, you'd think she'd be safe.
Gordana was wearing a brown t-shirt, cream-coloured jeans and cream joggers. The car, a Hilux four-wheel drive twin cab, is thought to be similar to this but coloured white. It also had chrome mag wheels and fishing rod holders at the front.
Please, I beg of the public, please, anyone, any colour, any race, please help, please.
Claiming it's suffering from a general decline in demand for places, Newcastle Uni has launched a campaign targeting mature-age students. This year, overall enrolments dropped by more than 400. Additional places are being offered for direct entry into subjects, with fees removed on admission tests and open foundation courses.
There's an opening for a couple of years, no more.
Mature-age students who missed out on entry because of last year's quotas are also being encouraged to reapply. There's a lot riding on the campaign, the federal government threatening to cut funds if enrolments don't increase.
We're under pressure, but we've got the problem solved. We've got a strategy, a very complete strategy for admissions for the months of January and February, which will work, so we're quite confident we'll get there.
A toll-free information number has been set up on 1800 636 466. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Police were called to the dentist surgery in Nelson Street, Wallsend at 2 this afternoon. As a masked man armed with a rifle burst into the surgery, a terrified elderly woman hid under a chair. The bandit then knocked a patient onto the floor and threatened the receptionist.
She's been confronted by this fellow who's armed with what at this stage we believe to be a sawn-off rifle, and the girl did exactly as she was told to do. She's handed over a small amount of money and he's ran off.
The receptionist was deeply shocked by the attack. Police searched nearby streets, but it's thought the bandit escaped down the side of an adjacent stormwater drain. He's described as medium build, tall and in his late 20s. He was wearing grey track pants and a dark-coloured parka. Even the experts can't please everybody. Midwife Mitzi Gordon has attended the births of thousands of babies in her 18-year career, and that means caring for thousands of mums and their families, working at Newcastle Hospital, Western Suburbs, and more recently the John Hunter. Staff at the hospital wished Mitzi farewell today. She will be missed.
Life is just going to be so different. I've been doing this for so long that I don't know how I feel. Very sad.
Mitzi completed her training at Royal North Shore in 1961 and left soon after to have 4 children of her own. She returned to the profession in 1973. Mitzi and her husband are going to live on a farm on the North Coast. Peter Ryan, NBN News.